One. So Emmett Williams, thanks for coming on the show, and it's great to have you.
Great to be here, Dylan. Thanks for having me.
And we were talking a little bit offline how with me, it was just we rescheduled like so many times, snow, daycare.
Yeah. No, that's no problem at all. Like I feel like even though I'm home and everybody else is at home, for some reason, like it hasn't been easier to schedule things at all. In fact, for me, so I've been working from home since 2006. So
wow.
So this actually hasn't been that much different for me, except for everybody else is home. So there's been a lot of like, hey, Emmett, I'm home too. Teach me how to work from home. Or like,
right.
how do you do this? Why do you do this? Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a lot of that. So I've been actually on a lot more phone calls than I've ever been in my life.
Yeah, and like we were saying, and I've brought this up on the show numerous times with our guests. I've never been busier with multimedia, I guess, if you want to call it like a grander scheme of things. You know, I've never been busier with multimedia, live streaming and remote work, and being a new dad, and having to shovel snow now, and I had to clean off the car, and so I went out. I just started the cars, turned on all the heat all the way up, all the the little window warmer upper or whatever, and I just let it run. And the wife's like, "Are you just gonna let it sit there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna let it sit there for about 30 minutes, and it'll make my job easier when I go out there with the scraper." But
sure.
But yeah, Emmett Williams, documentary filmmaker, photojournalist, multimedia specialist extraordinaire, fellow Discovery Channel alumni, along myself. Tell me a little bit more about who you are, what you do, what you've been up to.
Oh, that's a huge question.
We've got the time for it, my man.
I started at the beginning, so I accidentally got into television in 1999, 2000. I was a freelance journalist living in New York City, and things were going a little bit slow. And a good friend of mine, the amazing author Denise Kiernan, who just came out with a book that everybody should read. Denise Kiernan was a writer or producer at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and she said, "Hey, do you need I know I just called her. I was like, hey, things are really slow. I need a job." And it could have been anybody. Like if I had an accountant friend, I would have said the same thing. And she said, "Come work on this TV show." And so I started working at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire as a researcher, and then and then I just ended up staying in television. I worked there for 2 years. It's the first time I've ever had a job for that long. And and then I just became a TV producer by accident, and did that until about 2006, 2008 maybe. And then I decided that there were a lot of stories that I wanted to tell that I didn't have the power to tell in working for other people's TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
So I started a production company called Mission Man Media, which has a focus on documentaries and nonprofits. And I did a little bit of TV work here, like once every 5 years or so. But mostly just been working on my own since then. Doing my own thing, a lot of things for nonprofits, a lot of larger and smaller documentaries. Some client work, a lot of small client work sometimes, but also work for Facebook and the World Bank. And so it's a mix of all these different things that I get to do.
Yeah. I got Mission Man Media. So yeah, I'm always trying to promote the hell out of everybody here, man. So Mission Man Media. Okay. Very cool. Yeah. M&M.
Oh,
triple M's. Yeah. I like it.
Thanks.
Yeah, man. So very cool. So documentary style, but your focus, what generally drives your focus? What is what are the stories, or what's the motivation behind the picking of your stories?
People tend to think, so I chose the word Mission Man Media just because it's a line from this Bruce Springsteen song that I love. And so that was really, it just sounded nice.
And there he is right there.
There he is, look at that. And
it's your video. You timed that perfectly. I know you did that. But so did you produce this as well?
I produced that. Yeah, I produced
awesome.
that show. It was a show about the entertainment industry's reaction to 9/11.
Okay.
So I was a producer on that. So a lot of my work is sort of social justice related. Like this thing is, I went back to Ferguson a year after the Ferguson uprising.
Yeah, that was like what was it, 2017 or
2015? I was there. So
okay,
yeah, and so 2016 maybe, and so yeah, so a lot of my work is social justice related, and that is, that drives a lot of what I do. But the thing that interests me in a story is always people who just inspire, motivate me. So that's always the starting point for me. It's never I want to make, like with this film, it's not it's never like I want to make a film about kids with Tourette syndrome. It's there's somebody who, like the person who runs that camp that film is made about. It's just like this really inspiring, incredible person. Ooh, I need to take that down.
Okay.
So yeah, there's it always starts with a person. And there's just so many stories that I want to tell to so many people. I really do think that everybody has a story to tell. And so that's why I started doing those like 1 minute, one story things. And so I just, yeah, that's always a starting point for me, is like a person. And then out of that, they're likely doing some sort of amazing work that inspires me.
Yeah.
I just really want to try and get at the core of what makes every single person interesting.
Yeah. And, I tried to do that. And I think, what bothered me a lot of times, I have to respect it, but I've worked on a couple of projects where it was like, okay, I want to tell somebody's story, and I want to tell stories that surround that story. And I know that this person has a viewpoint, but also there's other viewpoints involved, and this, that, and the other thing. But when a subject or other crew members or other fellow producers are like, we can't show this, we can't show that, and that seems deceptive, that seems counterproductive, and that seems to me like not organic and not truly a documentary. It's more like docutainment, or it's like one-sided. And I've always found that to be one of my pet peeves as far as who it was I was working with. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. And I know that's something maybe you can shed more light on.
Yeah, like I've had talks with other documentary filmmakers, other media makers about this. Like, where is that line between exploitation and documentary filmmaking, and where is that line between documentary filmmaking and you sort of pushing your agenda? And so that's why I don't like, if somebody hires me to make a nonprofit film, I'll just do whatever they say because I'm doing their thing.
Right.
But for my own projects, I don't have like a call to action at the end of them, because that's not, and it's probably has hurt me a little bit, because I bet I'm just not interested in it. But I do know that like there's a lot of successful documentaries that are successful because they're part of this grand like change the agenda, or change things for whatever they're sort of pushing. And there needs to be a place for that, but it's just not something that I am interested in. And so one thing I like about the way I work is that it's often just me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like being just me and the camera and the person or the people that I'm filming. I think there's an intimacy there that I don't know that I could get if there was like a sound guy in the back seat and somebody else doing something, the gaffer or whatever. Or if I was just like sort of producing, there was a camera person and a sound person and these 3 people in a car.
Oh, hey, let me fix that lav mic real quick. I have a problem. And you kind of like biffed like this whole, like you're interrupting real life.
Yeah, and
yeah,
exactly. And I know me, I worry about the other 2 people too much. Like I want to make sure that my camera person is fed, and I want to make sure that the sound person is comfortable, even though they're like scrunched up in the back seat. But if it's just me and a person, me and one sort of person that I'm focusing on, or me, I just feel like just the access that I've been able to get has just been really amazing. Like I've been,
just you.
Yeah, when it's just me, because there's just so much. It's not even that people say things that they wouldn't say. It's that people say things that they wouldn't say because I've basically moved into their homes. You know, like the number of times that I'm like making film about somebody and they say, just like live in the basement while you're here, or you get the patience to, you get the time to be patient with people. Like you can just like sit with people. I was filming this, I was working in Rio with this woman who, her son had just been murdered by the police. And so I was, if you're just like able to like sit with people and like give them the time to tell their story, I just find that really helps. So I like, even though I'm not a camera person, and so there's certainly been times when something amazing happening and I didn't turn the camera on, or fighting with audio. Like I definitely should be better at all the technical stuff, but I really like working alone. And that's how so the film that made me want to work alone was Iraq in Fragments by James Longley. And just one of maybe my favorite documentary ever. And I saw it and I was like, this is how I want to make films. And so I emailed him and I said, how did you do this? Like, I don't know how I found his contact information. Just like, thank you, internet. And he was like, I did it myself. He was like, I just set up a camera and I just spent some quality time with people. And I thought, okay, well, if he can do it, I can do it. And so I started filling out grant applications, and my first film, I got a grant for it. It was about this native community in Alaska where people are trying to hold on to their language and their culture. And because it was just me, I was able to just sit and like spend like a month with this community so they could gain my trust. And I became the guy that was just like always walking around, and I got sort of known for that. So people just like pick me up in their pickup truck and I give me a ride to wherever. And so you just like, it's just a great way to build up trust. And so I really like making these films alone, and I just need to I need to become better a camera person. But yeah.
Don't we all? It's definitely not my science, but I think, especially with the way technology has evolved, like the iPhone, there was a web series I produced, a colleague, an old former colleague of mine, had these, I can speak a little bit more honestly about it now, but he had these, what is it? These illusions of grandeur. Is that the delusions of grandeur or illusions of grandeur? But he was 30 something. He wanted to try out for the NBA at 30 something. I said, okay, dude, let's talk about it. He goes, well, I need a scout tape. And I said, okay, let's talk about it. What you need a scout tape, but if someone's trying out for the NBA, even if you're college, even if you're high school, what are you going to be doing? Are you going to be, if let's say you're out of college and your college basketball career is over, but let's say if you were still 23, 24, 25, what would these kids be doing? And it's like, okay, D-League tryouts, right? So, I follow into a couple of D-League tryouts, and it turns into like, this immature travels of, kids going to the beach and bars and just hanging out and doing like, some, throwing the basketball around at a basketball court behind an apartment building. But then I started saying like, dude, is it just going to be you doing free throws at you know, like a corner basketball court? Are we going to like start putting forth some effort? But I was documenting the whole thing, and the first deal was, okay, I get him a scout tape. I'm going to do like this grander kind of web series documentary on him.
Mm-hmm.
And he got a scout tape, and I started getting all this footage, and he was passionate about the web series until he sees it. I'm like, dude, you know, I don't know if you remember, maybe you remember when LeBron James blew up. This kid came out of high school and I think went straight to the NBA from high school or something.
Yeah.
But there was a whole series of these ESPN documentaries. And that was the first thing that came to my mind. You're not at that LeBron James level, but show the good with the bad, show the scabs, show the lack of sleep, show the frustration.
Yeah.
As far as this web series goes. And long story short, the whole thing kind of did not please him. And he was looking for a second agenda, like start a tennis club, maybe start looking into baseball now. And it's like, dude, are we talking about NBA? Are we talking about MLB? Are we talking about tennis? Are we talking about coaching tennis or playing tennis? Are we talking about running a business? Are we talking commercials? Or are we talking scout tapes? Like, I'm like, you got to make up your mind here. But for me, there was this grander thing, and he had an issue with every single episode. I don't like the way it shows me. I don't like what I'm talking about. And I'm like, dude, you look directly into my phone and you say, film this, and then the shit doesn't work out for you. That's on you.
Yeah.
But it's like, listen, the vision here is, who are you? What are you trying to accomplish? And you haven't even decided that. And so that kind of spawned another web series that me and some other folks put together. They love being honest. They love showing the hustle. They love showing the grind, working 2 jobs and trying to make music, working 3 jobs and trying to build a brand and represent other artists, working 3 jobs. For me, it was, doing a shitload of gigs that are boring and mundane. And then working on that one film set where it's awesome, and then working a bunch of boring corporate industrial things, and then getting that one acting gig that's really fucking, dope and fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that is where the vision for the one thing turned into like the grander vision for the newer, improved thing that everybody was on board for, because we all agreed that the one subject from the first time was just, he didn't get it, and he wasn't honest. And it was, and that sort of thing. And then there's a couple of times I've cut out things that might get taken the wrong way because we had discussions that were off camera, just because I don't have cameras. This is not Big Brother. We don't have cameras running 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
So he had said a couple of things to me, and then he said something on tape, and I'm like, all right, I turned the camera to myself, like, cut that out. And another guy was like, why? I'm like, it won't read. The audience will misinterpret that. They're going to think that is jacked up. And
that is the thing that happens, is that sometimes somebody will say something that is controversial, and it might be amazing, but it distracts. Like I'm trying to, like, how do I tell these stories about people that I filmed without giving away? But like, I've made films with people, and they said something a little bit controversial. And I think if I was making a different film, this would be amazing. But this, like, 1 minute thing diatribe that they do is just going to distract from the film that I'm trying to make.
Right.
So I'm not trying to make like gotcha journalism also. So I'm not trying to like catch people off guard.
There's
generally just like a story that I want to tell. But a thing that I have learned to do is when I'm starting a project, I will not only when they are like signing the release, like the signing, because people will just like see that you have a release and just sign it. I say to them, here's the deal. Like, you get no say in any of this.
Right.
Like, I'm going to use whatever I want to use, and it's just going to come out, and I'm not trying to hurt you. And never would, but whatever I want to go in is going to go in.
Exactly. And I was covered the same way in both that NBA thing and then the thing that we have going on now. I mean, of course, I'm covered, and yeah.
And you also just have to, but people also have to get to the point where they trust you. And also, people are the worst. Like, nobody should ever look at themselves on camera, and you can't judge yourself. Like, right now, all I see is like this hair that's driving me crazy, like on the side. And that's the only thing I can think about right now. And so
I get that.
I shouldn't edit this. I should just let it go.
Yeah.
Because people have faults. People have we're all human and have these things, and so let them be.
I get that, and especially because these are colleagues, the new thing, right? Like the new thing that we have going on now, these are colleagues and friends and close friends. They were groomsmen too. So there are things that it's not like I'm going to throw them under the bus, but at the same time, if we're on the podcast or if we're on the other web series, it's like, dude, you're saying something that you can't back up, or you're trying to add more fluff to this thing that you're trying to present or pass off that you can't prove, you can't validate. So either number one, knock it off, or number two, prove it.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to throw somebody, but at the same time, I'm not trying to like destroy them live on YouTube. I'm not trying to destroy them on, on YouTube or social media, but at the same time, so there is that tricky balance, especially because they're friends. I mean, if you've got subjects that, outside this project, it's like, I'm not friends with them, I'm doing a piece on them. It's maybe not there's that tricky balance between exploitation and, trying to avoid that gotcha journalism, trying to avoid that exploitive nature that a lot of media kind of delves into. But at the same time, it's like, you want to be organic, you want to be honest.
Well, and also everybody's line is completely different, I think. Like, I don't have much of a line. I'm pretty comfortable with, I can't say everything, but a lot of things I'm really comfortable with. I'm making a film right now about infant and maternal mortality in the African American community. And as part of that, I'm filming births. Like, I'm been invited to like birth exams. Wow. And when I first started, I was sure that I was going to need an African American female camera person to go into like some intimate settings that I should not be in. But every single 100% of everybody that I've talked to and filmed has been like, come on in. Like, that people just like are happy that the story's been told. So I've been all these exams and all like breastfeeding circles and births and all these things, and had a good friend who's a filmmaker say that he was like, I don't want to see births and like a live birth in a film, because it became exploitation at that point. Like, it was too intimate. So I think everybody's line is different, and you have to get to the point where you don't care about anybody's line except for your own. And
yeah. This is, I mean, of course, it's your vision.
Yeah.
And that makes me think of this this documentary that someone did on Jim Brown, the actor, football player, activist Jim Brown, who I think it was his second wife. Well, this documentary came out maybe 2002, 2003, 2004, something like that. Early 2000s, early to mid 2000s it came out, and they showed his wife at the time. I don't know if it was second or third wife, but her giving birth. And they filmed it. It was in the documentary. Now, as far as TV standards go, you can blur something. Just because you're blurring, the goop and the very intimate body parts, just because you're blurring it, that doesn't take away still from the grand scheme of the story you're telling. You see what I'm saying? And so I'm not sure what it is that you're doing, but there are these it's like there's a, I don't know. It's just there's 10 different ways to tell a story. So if something, if some like small little area was blurred, and I think they did blur it, or it was maybe cropped, or they were just more did more of a close up on her, and and there was a second camera maybe that showed the kid, you know, being held by the doctor and cleaned off or whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah. So I wouldn't blur anything. Like that doesn't interest me at all.
right.
That, and like, if anything, part of the story that I'm trying to tell is trying to normalize Black bodies and normalize the politics of all of this. And so, and part of the thing is showing people that there are alternatives to this healthcare industry that's been so detrimental to so many people. So like the beauty of a home birth, like I'm going to show every single part of that, because it's an amazing experience to go through.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's I mean, and that's the thing about working in television. And I say this as somebody who's literally pitching TV shows right now, but there is, you know, there's a line that you can't cross in television, and that makes you want to find alternative ways to do things. Like releasing, you know, it's, I could have, you know, you could, trying to, like, you know, have a lot of friends in TV and a lot of like work. So you're like, you're not trying to be like, reality TV sucks. It's like, it's a great job, and I know a lot of people in it. But there's just like work that you can't do. You know, once you know, yeah, no, I'm just happier doing what I do.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely, absolutely. And I can't agree with you more that your vision.
Censoring myself, by the way. Yeah.
No, but I can't agree with you more that your vision is to not blur it. You know,
yeah.
And there's always that workaround. The alternative is just to put, like, you know, some text in the beginning. This show, this documentary or whatever, you know, may contain some mature or disturbing, you know,
but it shouldn't be like that. It should be like, this show contains things that should be completely normalized, and everybody should not, and it should not be.
Hey, there's a way to word it right there, right?
So just like watching and quit bitching and just watch it and realize that, like, this is a thing that, you know, women have gone through billions of times, and relax and stop making such a big deal.
Hey, and that should be your opening text right there, right? and there's your further workaround.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree with you more. And I have even seen some, you know, some films and some documentaries that have done that. And yeah, like they put that up there as a CYA. That's a whole legal thing, right? And then they make fun of they make fun of the thing that they had to put up. And if you don't like it, then go cry to your mama or something like that, right? Like, and they kind of poke fun at the fact that they had to do the CYA. They poke fun at the folks that are bothered by every little thing known to man. You know, the people that are bothered by and you're absolutely right. It's a natural thing. And my wife was, you know, during the birth of our son, she had to get a C-section, but I wanted to watch it, you know, because if it wasn't the one kind of birth, I still wanted to see the birth. The doctors were like, no, you can't. I think there was a sanitary or whatever, but I was still trying to sneak a peek, because this is something, you know, extraordinary in our lives, whether it was a natural vaginal birth, whether it was a C-section birth. And I still wanted, like, and I got somewhat of a glimpse, but then, you know, when they grabbed them, they can't have me over there because she is like cut open, and they got to like sew her back up and put everything back together.
Yeah.
So I get that, and it was, you know,
but I mean, a lot of what, like, the film that I'm making, the people that I talk to, a lot of that stuff is just them trying to protect themselves, and it's less like any sort of sanitation or
it is,
or anything like that. It's just them being like, we don't want this dad freaking out because his wife's stomach, like, that's just not a thing that we should see.
Right.
So
yeah.
the medical industry.
I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a number of what do you call it? Logistics going into that. You know, there's a whole number of logistics that are involved in it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Well, so you know, now here we are, quarantine. How have you been impacted? You know, how professionally, creatively, productively, personally?
I got really lucky in that in January I started working for this amazing organization that was really focused on the election, and it started off as just like one or two few weeks of this gig, and I like went to Iowa and filmed the caucuses. So I did a little work there, and then I just ended up sort of working regularly for them, and that gave me sort of like regular stable pay throughout the entire year through the election. So I got really, really lucky. If that hadn't happened, I'm not sure what I would be sleeping on your couch probably right now. Yeah, I got really super lucky that happened. So I've been like, and that has also allowed me to finish one film. I have another film coming out on January 12th that I've been able to work on. I've been able to like pitch a bunch of like finish some like serious pitches for a few things. I've been able to work on a lot of things, but all of this, you know, that sort of not like dream projects, because that they would have happened eventually, but it just gave me a little bit more time to like really focus on a few things. So I'm like producing a few podcasts. I am I'm a musician, so like a record coming out as soon as, you know, I'll get a vaccine, or we all get a vaccine and are free to roam. There's like some photography projects. So it hasn't been, I mean, I feel terrible saying this. There's a little bit of like COVID guilt or whatever it's called.
Survivor's guilt. Yeah.
Survivor guilt. Yeah. But it hasn't been that bad, because I got super lucky having this like one thing that kept me stable throughout the year up until, but as soon as the election happened, I was like, Biden won. Oh, I'm unemployed. Now what am I gonna do? Yeah. So there's a little bit of that happening right now. But overall, it's been outside of like not being able to go out and film. Well, that's not even true. I'm making a film sort of with this organization called Missourians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty. And I was on the East Coast in April, and there was an execution that was happening in Missouri. And so I had to decide whether it made sense to fly. And it was at a time when like nobody was flying, because that's a terrible idea.
Yeah, that was the height. Yeah.
And so I talked with a lot of filmmakers over whether it made sense to film this one-time experience that I was not going to be able to film again, or whether to just like let it go for everybody's safety. And so we decided that it was too important of a story to not tell. And so I flew from the East Coast to Kansas City, quarantined for 2 weeks, and then filmed people who were trying to stop the execution. So outside of that one time, you know, the only thing that's really been different is that haven't been able to go out and shoot, which I miss a little bit.
I was just recently on set, finally back on set, I think last week, Wednesday and Friday, for an acting gig. And it was a military, you know, the military, the Air Force, the Army, they have all these online courses, and then there's those videos that are part of the modules. Then you might answer a question or two based on each little video segment. And so for those video segments, I was playing like a high-ranking Air Force official or whatever, you know. So 2 days work, finally back on set. And I mean, especially with that, I was more comfortable being on a military installation, military building. They're super strict when it comes to COVID compliance.
Yeah.
The actual military personnel are tested way more. And so if someone, you know, pops hot on a COVID test, you know, they're going to be quarantined, obviously treated and that such. So anybody there, I was pretty sure that things are more safer, in generally speaking, when it comes to like a military, a DOD project, you know, a military project, you know. So
Yeah.
as far as acting goes, yeah, I finally was back on set. It was great to finally be back on set. But yeah, I mean, there's that passion, there's that risk, but you're doing it smart and
Yeah, but like there's you know, the I'm supposed to continue filming the documentary about doulas in January, but Kansas City has like a 25% positivity rate, and I would be in like a space with 10 or so other people at least once a week, and we'd be all masked and you, you know, for the film that I want to make, I'm not going to be distant. I can't be distant.
mm-hmm.
So the question for documentary filmmakers is, if something doesn't have to be filmed right now, should you do it? And
yeah. And you said, what was it? Doulas?
Doulas, yeah. For African-American doulas in Kansas City, this amazing organization called Uzazi Village in Kansas City, and they're just literally just saving lives every day and just doing so much amazing work. And I've been filming them for about a year and a half or so.
Okay.
But I need like 5 or 6 more shoot days to finish the film, and so it's that question of, is it worth it? It doesn't seem worth it to oh, look at that.
Yeah,
you're so quick.
Yeah.
What happens if you click on that link? I have no idea if it even works.
So there's sister doula.
Yeah.
So what is doula? What is that?
A doula is a oh, look at that. This is I never see look at that.
Okay.
There's this description right there. Doula is like a birth coach.
Okay. Yeah.
Like a birth coach. But there's so much bigger than that. I mean, that's like the really simple, easy definition. They do so much, from like advocating for women and families with in the hospitals, and they are doing everything like this really intense, serious advocating and like saving lives, and just like being there for people on like one end, and then the other end, you know, when a mom is about to give birth, you know, they ask her what her favorite music is, and they'll like make a playlist for like that birthing day, and like making sure they have like a week's worth of food in the freezer for that like first crazy week of the baby being home. They just do so much work, and they're literally like, yeah, they're heroes. And so I am almost filming that. And so they have these classes that happen like 4 times a year. So it's like, do I film it in January where it's, you know, super COVID dangerous, or do I wait until like the June one? But you'd like, you know, or you know, you want to get your story out. You want to like finish your film, especially when you know it's so close.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance. I mean, now that we have this vaccine, and they're, you know, and some of my colleagues got it because of they have another job that they're a first responder, so they're able to get the vaccine. So he can come into my studio inside. But then some of the other people involved in this one project, I got to set a green screen outside on the deck, space heaters, because this is the only time I can film it, it's like freaking winter, and now it's snowing, so we had to push a bunch of dates back, and then it might rain another day. We got to push that day back.
How do you do audio with space heaters? Are they
still lav? And then Final Cut, do my best, you know, with an audio filter. But
yeah,
space heaters, yeah. So I might, with the space heaters, I might, you know, put a blanket in such a way. I don't know. We're gonna wing it, man, because you know, like some of the productions. So with this one production, having a low quality, you know, low budget, low quality production feel to it is kind of the essence to it, because, and I can tell you a little bit more about it offline, but just that having that low quality to it is kind of the essence of the show, versus there's other productions that I have. There's other scripts, there's other productions that that had to like just be postponed because, like you said, it's you know, there's fight scenes, there's grappling, there's people in a car, there's 4 people in a car together.
Right.
How are we going to work around that? There is no work around that. Just put that on the shelf. We'll get to that when we get to that. But we can do twice as much on this other show and just figure out this production hack. So, and I think the space heaters are not that loud. So
okay.
And before there was we shot the second season of this web series right here in this room, and I was able to, you know, somehow magically filter out the AC. So if I can do that, but if we're outside and there's birds chirping and there's like, you know, squirrels running around in the leaves, I don't know. Figure it out.
Yeah, but I wonder if going forward, if just like the way the YouTube changed, YouTube sort of like lowered the quality of what people are used to seeing.
Lowered the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if like Zoom is going to lower it even lower.
Hey, listen.
So people are like, I don't mind fuzzy and like room sounds because I've been doing it for that's all I've been looking at for the last year and a half.
Listen, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Not only did YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok kind of lower the bar in quality, right? But then quarantine did. And so now we're seeing freaking, you know, Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith doing their Red Table show, and it's just them sitting at a freaking table talking about stuff, and that's almost like a podcast though. But I mean, you got Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon doing their shows virtual. You got you know, you got all sorts of things that figured out a production hack and work around and still put stuff out. But what's exactly the same is the idea, is the story, is the content, is the interaction. I mean, like this, maybe a year or two ago, you and I would have been in a studio sitting across from each other, you know, each with a mic and a pop screen. But now it's this, and it's all the same. We're having the same exact conversations about the same projects you've been doing for the last 5, 10 years, 15 years.
I wonder how it's going to affect client work. Like clients are going to be like, just record it on Zoom. It'll be fine. Where, you know, we've spent all these years perfecting our cinematography and audio and that sort of thing. Like at the beginning, I have this podcast that I need to finish recording, and I thought that I'm not going to do it this year because nobody wants to hear Zoom audio. And there was no way, you know, I can't get like professional audio from just like random people because there's so many different things you have to worry about with like, just Wi-Fi strength and people filming. And I just wanted the audio, but it was still, at the beginning of the year, I really wanted to finish this podcast, but I did not pursue it because I just thought that the quality of the audio was not going to be good enough. And now it's to the point where everybody's just like, every podcast that I listen to now, I know that you can tell that they're doing it with Zoom, but they're fine with, like, it sounds fine, and
right?
We're used to it.
Yeah, and it sounds fine, but that's also a staple of the time. You know, like 1920s, there was no sound, and then all of a sudden we got talkies, but everything was black and white, right? And then I think in the 40s, mid to late 40s, we started getting color films, and so that's a staple of time. And then, you know, black and white, but at the same time, black and white films were higher quality. Yeah. When they started experimenting with color film, it was a little bit shoddier, a little bit difficult to make, and that quality might have dropped. And then in the 60s and 70s, I think they were banging stuff out because there was more cameras, there was more equipment at hand, but it was lesser quality. And you can see that when that rise in the avant-garde and the French New Wave and the 70s, 60s rebellion and the 70s rebellion in filmmaking, they were kicking out films left and right, but they were lower quality. And that's when we started getting B movies, right? And these grindhouse movies. But that was a staple of the time. And then with the 80s, things started like higher quality, but then like real like neo noir and you know, everything's neon and colorful and bright and big explosions and bigger budget. And then in the 90s, we started getting grittier indie films again. And, it's, and that's always just a staple of that time. And so now we're going to see all this Zoom content, all this virtual content. Well, that was a staple of the time. You know, shit, we were quarantined. We were sheltering in place and still kicking stuff out. And so, you know, in a year from now, you and I, we're in a studio doing a, you know, better quality podcast. I'm going to be proud of that one just as I am of this one, because this was a staple of time, especially we're still doing something.
Yeah.
And it was like, I remember that time, man, where like I didn't leave my house for days, and I still had Emmett on, I still had Michaela on, I still had, you know,
Michaela.
You know, but I just had her on yesterday, you know, a guest that I had on yesterday, and I just had, you know, like I had these cosplayers on my show, but they were cosplaying virtually. They were still building, they were still experimenting with their makeup and effects, and they were doing all this stuff on Instagram, and I had them on my podcast talking about that. And it's like, this is a staple in time where, yeah, the audio's not that great. And it's the stupid picture in picture, and and he's got brandings filling in little gaps of the video. But dude, this is, you know, it's still a great conversation, and it's a staple of that time we had 2021 and 2022. There might be this overcharge of high quality shit because of what we had to deal with in 2020.
Maybe. Yeah.
Or am I?
We don't know what is going to happen, but I do think there's going to be a lot of people who used to pay more for content who are going to think, oh, you know, we did this for a lot less during the quarantine and it was fine. Let's just do it now. And so our people in our world are going to be struggling a little bit.
I don't think people in our world will be struggling because they're okay. So I don't want to give too much away, and I don't want to, like, you know, shoot myself in the foot, but I feel like I've been making more, not only on a day rate or a weekly rate.
Right, but you have a specific set of skills that are perfect for
are in high demand, right?
Yeah, the other are high demand, but there's going to be like camera people and editors and sound people who don't have, like, if somebody's like, let's just do the interview on Zoom, that's 1 to 3 people who are not going to be working.
Okay, but now, but now, as a producer, and I would keep that in mind. Now, hopefully, most producers and most clients would keep in mind, okay, there's a way to do this, and then more high quality, because you don't have to do super locations anymore. You don't have to, you know, especially let's take, well, first thing that came to my mind was like these big corporates and industrials. You don't have to spend, you know, $100,000 renting out a hotel or a convention center. So you're going to look at your budget from 2020, look at your budget for 2019. You only spent 25%. Throw an extra 10% towards crew. Let's get some cameras, some high quality cameras onto a mixer tacked into Zoom, right? Into a TriCaster, into a vMix, into a Wirecast, into Zoom, right?
Yeah.
And so now you've got your Sonys, your Canons. It's not your little rinky-dink webcam. It's your Sonys, it's your Canons. You got a high quality, you got a professional sound guy micing you up, going to a mixer, going to Zoom. And and it's this hybrid, but you're still not even going to max. Still not even going to hit 50% of your budget that was in 2019.
Yeah.
You're going to be way below that bar that it was a year or two ago. And you can still pay some high quality professionals an even better rate than they were getting in 2019.
Right.
But that grand budget is still going to fall well below 50% of what it was last year, 2 years ago. There's that hybrid, and that's what
you hope. Yeah.
And that's what I hope. And I think a lot of clients are going to, like, all of a sudden be like, oh no, I don't have to pay anybody. And it's like, let's start hybrid. Let's start working on that hybrid idea.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
So
have you heard of people in our business going to different careers, different professions because
yes, and
the work is
They have, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, shit. I mean, maybe back in April, like I knew a lot of Joes that were like, what is that, Forex? They're on Robinhood, just like trading stocks, or they're doing cryptocurrency. They're trying to swap cryptocurrency. They went headfirst into stocks on using the app Robinhood, or there's some other apps. But there's this new thing, Forex, and I think it's, honestly, I don't even know what the hell it is. I had a guest on, one of my first 10 or 15 episodes. I had a guy, my buddy Mike, and he just jumped head deep into Forex, and it just went way over my head. We must have talked for an hour and a half, and I still don't know what the hell it is. I think it's stocks and it's crypto, and it's a whole vast network of all sorts of different things. But
so he quit the TV film content making thing to go do this.
He did live events, but hey, during the quarantine, yeah, he had to just jump right into it. Now, what he's doing now, I'm not really sure. I think he was into Forex even while he was, on location doing gigs. But, in April and May, everything was shut down. So that was his first and foremost. But now I think the trick is not only for clients to be accepting and to be willing and to be open-minded, but it's for us. It's for the professionals to think outside this box and be like, I'm willing to accept this new normal, or this new semi-hybrid, et cetera, kind of normal, and say, listen, this is what we can do. You want to use Zoom, and you want to bring on all these different people on Zooms, but listen, there's better cameras. You need professionals on how to use them. There's there's better sound. There's a way to tack in this sound, because even now, I mean, I'm doing a lot of corporate industrial events virtually through Zoom, and the first thing I keep pounding my fist on the hand is, can we at least get headsets?
Yeah.
Can we at least get headsets? Like their audio is going in and out.
I was.
They can't hear me. I can hear me coming out of their system back into my headset. All they need is a freaking headset. I mean, these are like, $20.
Sure.
This might be, I think, 30. This is like a more in-depth gaming thing. It looks stupid.
But you look great.
But it's acceptable. Right?
But no, you sound like professional. You're like,
right.
Oh, he needs to do this because he's running this, and we're all used to it by now.
Yeah.
I had to have, for recent clients, we tried to record the Zoom thing, and it just wasn't sounding great. So we sent them a Zoom, like a little Zoom H1, like the super basic Zoom, and just taught them where to put it. Or people have been plugging, Lav into their iPhone, and getting a little bit better audio there. And so there's ways that people can up their production level very, very easily. The amount of ring lights that have been sent out this year, just to improve things a little bit. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, even more so, so we don't have to talk about it online. I'll talk about it. But the two web series I was telling you about, we figured out a production hack, shooting green screen in here, or shooting green screen on the deck outside with the space heaters. So you worked at Discovery Channel for a while. So you remember those crime shows on ID, those crime reenactment shows. So we figured out we figured, okay, if Bruce Wayne or Clark Kent went home, had a cocktail, and watched ID, what would those episodes be about? So we did a crime show based in DC universe. So we did a crime show based in Marvel universe. Oh. Well, so ultra low budget. I've been on those sets. I've acted on those. I've played a detective in maybe 50, 60, 70 different episodes of those different crime shows. So I've seen how super low budget those dramatic reenactments are. Then I watched the show. I'm like, oh, it's some specialist against a green screen, kind of reiterating what happened during this case. Oh, too easy. So, we kind of created our own thing within the DC universe and another one within the Marvel. And then as kind of a promo, we had those analysts, like Clark in the show, we had, Clark Kent as an analyst talking about the criminal. And then we would cut to a dramatic reenactment, or we'd have Jeremiah Arkham, founder of Arkham Asylum, and those are the specialists. Those are the analysts, the criminologists sitting against a green screen. Then we'd have those guys in a Zoom thing. Hey, season two was great. I can't wait to shoot season 3. and they're on Zoom. So now there's this little Zoom film. I don't know if you're familiar with the horror movie Host.
I'm not.
Shudder. So you should check it out. Shudder came out with this horror movie called Host. It's a horror movie completely shot in Zoom, and they want to do this. They want to do this virtual happy hour.
Yeah.
They did this virtual happy hour, and they did a seance virtually with a medium, and they all came on Zoom, and now they're all haunted by this demon through Zoom. It's awesome, awesome, awesome film. But so we came up with one where now you've got some of the characters that are on this crime show. Now they're just chatting about how, I can't wait to do season 3 when this quarantine's over, and then aliens attack and things blow up, right? And then in this Zoom film. And so it was definitely an experiment for us to shoot this thing just all on Zoom and see how it plays out. But it's like, again, it's, I had an earpiece, somebody didn't. Somebody had a big headset like this. Yeah. I had the little mic things because I get, blown up. So like I get thrown back out of my chair. And then the other guy just didn't have anything. And it's like this kind of like this interplay of the different qualities and the natural organic of the staple of our time right now.
Sure.
And then a year from now, I hope, hey, don't get me wrong, I hope to have like a super big budget thing and catering and crafty and
can I be on when there's catering? Because
exactly. So, but I mean, it's just what's important is still finding that production hack and staying creative within this time. And what's going to happen? What's going to happen next year? We don't know. What's going to happen in the year after that? We don't know. I mean, 5 years. No, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, and it's also just like the content, like what you're shooting. Like I made, there's a film on the missionmanmedia.com page called We Are Fishermen, and where it's about fishing communities that are dying in Southeast Alaska. And I spent 4 days with this amazing family on a boat. And I'm just filming, they get up at 3 or 4 and they fish until midnight. So I'm like, at some point I was like, I've probably filmed enough fish death. Like there's only so much fishing that you can film. And then, oh yeah, look at that. And so what I ended up, but then what happened was just some amazing things happened once I like put the camera away. And so I ended up using my iPhone for lots of it. And honestly, a lot of like the best footage was me like pulling the phone out of my pocket and starting to film some just like really amazing things. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just going to mention iPhone. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, Soderbergh did Unsane entirely on an iPhone 8, I think it is.
Yeah.
And I think right before he did that, there was a Korean filmmaker that did a feature on an iPhone as well.
Yeah.
And it's experimentation. Hey, listen, they're not going to greenlight my film. I got zero budget. I'm still going to make this film. How am I going to make this film?
Right.
You pulled your iPhone out of your pocket. Shit, I was the GoPro master, I think, from 2012 to 2017. I had magnets on GoPros, and it was like, and I would set it at like the medium quality so that it would get more footage out of the card. Yeah. And the battery is going to last only so long, but I figured certain quality would match the battery life, magnets on the bottom, and just start like smacking GoPros on shit.
Sure.
And it's a film, and it's coverage, and it's content, and no audio with that footage because it's in that waterproof case, and so find what's another way to get the audio from the iPhone footage, or just voice memos on the iPhone, put it in the pocket, and there's your film. It's like production hacks.
Yeah, but it's also like so this film is also one of the bad things about doing everything yourself is there's this, you just reminded me of the story. There's this shot where I was like literally like hanging off the side, and I've got the GoPro, and it's like this just amazing footage that I nearly died for.
Yeah.
Because I'm literally just like hanging by a rope off the side of the boat. The boat's moving really fast, but this GoPro's like getting this like head first shot of this person fishing, and I have no idea where the footage is. I just you have to be so organized, and sometimes things like fall through the cracks. And so there's this amazing, the best shot of my life. I've never seen it, because I don't know where that is.
Story of my life.
I'll find it in like 5 years.
That self-DIT media managing shit can be insane. It can bite you in the ass. But I mean, there was another thing so me and the same colleagues I mentioned, we started a whole second, which is now this other web series. We started it with the 16-day road trip, and I invested in some of those sunglasses with a camera in it. And we would go to bars, and there was like some crazy bars we went to, but at night. So I'm gonna look like an asshole with sunglasses on. So I hung it here, right? So it's almost like having a GoPro here, but no one would ever know. You got this organic stuff. I went back, blurred some faces, what have you. But now it's sideways. Well, the news made it kind of acceptable when the news shows you smartphone footage. They do that. It's square, but then they double it behind it, blurry.
Yeah.
So I just did that. I wish I remember what the effect was called in Final Cut, but the news started doing it all.
Yeah, you just put it like a Gaussian blur. You like double and copy, put a Gaussian blur over, like expand it out.
Yep.
Yeah, sadly, that is, I do that so much now, and people are really impressed by it. I'm like, no, it's.
I hate it. Stop shooting shit portrait, man. Turn the phone this way. Stop shooting it this way. Turn your phone this way. And I like, me and my wife are constantly going back and forth about it. I got like one of my colleagues that I work with regularly always shoots everything this way, and I'm like, dude, turn that fucking phone.
But that's just our age. Like, people who younger people don't care at all.
They don't.
Yeah. So,
but younger people don't care about quality. They care about content.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
But for me personally, it's that fine balance.
Yeah.
Quality versus content. And so at the end of the day, I'm going to choose content. I got this important thing on video.
Yeah.
And it looks like this. Screw it. Take a few extra seconds, throw that effect on there that doubles it and blurry, and so it fills the screen with the blurriness around it and all that. And now, again, with technology, it only takes a few seconds to just fix that. And so
it's good, but people don't care. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying, like, people are totally fine with their like 30-second TikTok video that ends in the middle of them like going to push the off button, and that's how it ends. So we have to adjust to what society wants.
I guess.
Sorry.
I guess, whatever, man. Well, what's next on the agenda? You kind of discussed it. I know you got doulas but what's next on the agenda? What's the next set of goals?
The next thing, I have a film coming out January 12th. There's a man named Alex Garcia who has been living in sanctuary for the last 3 years now. He is from Honduras, and he has been living in America for 15 years or so. But through a technicality, this weird sort of technicality, ICE is trying to deport him. And so he's been living in a church, taking sanctuary in a church for the last 3 years. He's got 5 kids. They all live in the States. He's been like this amazing, he's universally loved, has helped every community that he's ever been a part of. But if he leaves the church, ICE could deport him. And so I spent a few weeks with him a year or so ago. And so that film is finally coming out January 12th. And it'll be online, available to like rent and buy online for a month. I think we're just going to rent for a month, and then go to film festivals through the year, and then back online. I think that's what the plan is. So that comes out January 12th. I will go back to filming Sister Doulas whenever that is finished. Whenever it feels safe to film. And then I start working on I'm sort of in pre-production on my next sort of big project, which is called, I think it's going to be called A House, a Home. And it's sort of like the through line is the favelas in Rio, and how that really ugly term that people use when they're describing basically just like affordable housing. You know, they'll use the word slum
or Section 8. Yeah, like all these different terms. Yeah.
Well, less like yeah, that's sort of like the idea, but there are some like sort of like trigger words.
Yeah.
And so it's but if you go there, you just like see this amazing, innovative architecture, and so it's just about amazing architecture around the world that is really just like affordable housing for people, based around. I want to spend, you know, a year in the favelas in Rio, just filming people like creating and building upon their homes. And so that's my next project. I'm trying to get to Brazil very soon. We'll see how that goes. And so that's the next thing. I'm pitching a few shows that I don't think I'm allowed to talk about.
Okay.
I guess.
I get it.
Yeah, they're like network TV shows.
Sure. Yeah. Awesome. Very cool.
Well, what else is going on? I feel like there's more. I've got 2 podcasts that are coming out soon, I think.
What are those about?
Yeah. Damn it. I'm just gonna. Yeah, they're coming out soon. One is about. One of them is called Textbook, and it is about like talking about all of society's issues, problems, but also not necessarily problems, and it doesn't have to be like negative, but just like talking about everything that's going on with society through the lens of our education system, and mostly talking to teachers.
Okay.
So that is one, and then I have another one called Halls of Justice, which is the one that I've been recording for about a year, and I stopped in because I didn't think that people wanted to listen to Zoom audio. And that is it's not interview. It's not interview. It's I mean, I'm interviewing people, but it's about it's not even about like reforming the U.S. justice system, but it's like thinking about why we're at the place where we are with the U.S. justice system, and it's taking the voices of philosophers and educators and people who have been imprisoned and community members of communities that have been impacted by the U.S. prison system. And it's sort of like merging all those voices. And people who are still in prison. And it's like merging all those voices. You don't know who you're hearing, but it's having like, it's sort of this arc of, and every episode's like a different arc. There's only 10 episodes. Hope I explained that well. I need to work on my pitch. But that's basically what that one is. That was
this could be a pitch, you know, like
yeah. Could you just
you know, like podcasts have turned into proof of concept now.
Yeah.
And so
if anybody heard that and understands it and wants to fund it, find me at www.emmettwilliams.com.
Well, yep. All your descriptions, all your links are in the description below. So
yeah,
definitely.
So those 2 things, and I've got a photography project that I want to do. That's going to take, again, that's post-COVID things. It takes me. I have to drive around the country a little bit for this photography project, and I'm a musician, and I've got a record coming out this summer, I guess, and then I'll do a little touring after that, around that. So.
Yeah, I had a previous guest on. He's a photographer as well, Steve Bush, and he did a whole road trip photography thing during the quarantine. I think the whole summer, and it's just about.
Are you calling me lazy?
Huh?
Are you calling me lazy? Are you saying anything?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. I'm just saying, hey, listen, there's a workaround. You know.
Yeah. There's
always a workaround. I'm definitely not calling you lazy. But you know, hey, listen. I mean, better safe than sorry, and it might take you twice as long. But
yeah,
you know,
you just know. It's like, you know, I have people close to me that are immunocompromised, and so at the one time you're like, on the one hand you're like, I'll just get out there and be safe, but on the other hand you're like, or I could wait a year and not threaten these people's lives.
So, and it's a tricky balance because you have for example, you have doulas, right? And that's kind of time sensitive, but to an extent, right? That's kind of time sensitive, but the Rio, the architecture thing, that could wait.
That could wait, yeah.
And so it's like you got to take it's that tricky kind of compromise, the planning. What is in the election? There's no waiting on that.
Yeah,
that's run and gun. That's chase it.
Yeah,
and that's okay. Think fast. Glass shield, mask, gloves, the whole rubber suit completely over, and then you got to label it media, and then you got to, like, wrap up the gear too, and then go out there and run and gun that thing. But the architecture in Rio, okay, that can wait.
Yeah.
Plus,
but even
if I were you, if it was me doing that, I want to enjoy that shit. I want to go out there. I want to go to some bars too, and eat some nice food, and drink on some rooftops and enjoy that, that architecture. Really suck it in and.
Yeah, but and the thinking about the covering things that are one time. I do have one of them. Maybe this is somebody you should have on. Michael Nigro, one of the best photojournalists. That he's just amazing. He does so much amazing work, and we've been together at a few different events. We tend to he's everywhere where there's like a new thing happening. So we did a thing at Standing Rock together, not together, but we were there at the same time. Like shared at Standing Rock, it was all just like there was one hotel during the blizzard, crazy thing. So, and we've been at like different protests and things like that. But I think he's been public enough, so I think it's okay for me to say. But he got COVID in March, and he, from like documenting COVID, and his story is the one that I like go back to, because he is still really, really feeling the effects of it. And he was super careful, but it still happened. So we should all just stay home, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's
because you just don't know.
It's tricky, man.
Yeah, you just don't have any idea. Like, yeah.
And so, I mean, back to that photography. I mean, that is something I was looking into myself, and I never really pulled the trigger. And there's just ways of just staying in your car the whole time. And you go, like, it might take a couple hours to go to the next state up north, the next state down south. Just drive around for like a day, sleep in your car, pack some munchies, sleep in your car, drive home, and you spent like 24 to 36 hours just going on some random photography excursion. And you never know what you might pull off. You take some photos, and then
for sure. But it's also like not knowing what. Yeah, there's just no way to know.
Yeah.
When during the George Floyd protests, I think on one of my, if you go to EmmettWilliams.com and the photography thing, there's a load of photos that I took, and like at that point it seemed too important to not document.
Right. Yeah.
So I went to I did a lot of photography around that. And which was really, really nice as a media maker, because I just went out and shot a bunch of stuff just to put up on Instagram and Facebook, and it went viral a little bit. And I got loads of work out of that. And I got a lot of work out of those photos, and I got a lot of like speaking gigs. Like I ended up like talking at universities and things like that. So yeah, look at that. I'm glad my websites are working.
Oh yeah, they're working.
Working okay. It's nice to like.
Yeah, I mean that was this in DC? Was this?
No, this was in Denver, Colorado.
Denver, Colorado. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it was a rough summer.
Mm-hmm.
It was a rough summer. So I'm in the DC National Guard, and we had to, so we had to stand outside in front of the buildings, and and block streets from vehicle traffic so that you know, protesters could go through and do their God-given American right. And you know, mixed feelings on you know, 17 different levels for a lot of us. And you know, I'll wait until a couple years before I speak out, but about, you know, some more honest and depth feelings. But
Yeah.
it was important that we were there. The to the DC National Guard. DC's our city. You know, that's what we guard. That's what we protect. And you know, we made sure that the citizens of DC were given ample opportunity to do what they had to do, and do it and do it right, of course,
Sure.
but do what they had to do. And it was a rough summer.
Yeah, but I think that's a whole other documentary that somebody needs to make. And anybody watching this, feel free to steal this idea. But like what the summer was to the people in the National Guard and some of the people in the police force and the military, and like things from their point of view. Because I know that I had a conversation with somebody who sort of knows the ins and outs of your world, and they were like, yeah, the military / National Guard were sometimes asked to do things that they weren't, and maybe you can't tell me, but what I heard is that people were asked to do things that they aren't necessarily were under the purview of what they signed up for, or what they thought they should be doing. And so I know people can't talk about it until they're out of it, or right. But I think that would be a really interesting story to tell in 5 years.
What I can say is that things were complicated enough. Things were already complicated enough, but us being there, from what I saw, nobody really did anything too terrible. And the news blew it way out of proportion. Oh, sure. The media blew it way out of proportion to where they lumped everybody into one faction. They did this to the protesters. And I can tell you that from what I was hands-on with, we blocked streets from vehicles because of what happened in Charlottesville, North Carolina, where people were driving, and now that's the big thing. Yeah, assholes are fucking driving their cars through. So the perception was we were blocking streets for everybody, and that wasn't the case. We were blocking streets for vehicles so that people could come through, and then those people were allowed to come through. And then there were certain areas that were completely blocked, just because with every riot, with every protest, with every march and protest, there's the agitators, there's the looters and the rioters. And so things were set on fire and destroyed. Well, now that area is not safe for anybody to be in. So roads and streets were blocked off completely for repairs. It was basically that simple, for repairs. But then, you know, so many blocks out, you know, barricades and things were placed so that vehicles can't come in, so that these people can come in and scream and chant and yell and sing as loud as you want.
Right.
Now, there was a couple of situations that, yeah, everybody was just lumped in. Oh, police and National Guard did such and such. And that wasn't the case. Yeah. And if you were to pause it and go frame by frame, you know, super slow-mo, you'd see that. And you'd see, but there was a lot of complication there. And before I do have to wait until I'm out to truly like express my feelings, or at least I think I'm going to wait a year. But what I can say is that I'm proud of what we did do. I'm not proud of the grander scheme of certain circumstances that brought us there, but the simple fact that we were out there, and for the majority of it, I think people on the ground saw that, you know, we're there just to make sure everything is conducive to law and order generally.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that needs to be a film also. And it there needs to be a film about things the military has been asked to do throughout time. And where is that line between like your conscience and like just like taking orders and the public, what is like the public perception of those events after they happen.
Well,
because I have
no, go ahead
no I think that's like I'll stop there.
Well, if you can track down that film, I'd love to watch it. But
I don't think it's been made. I just came up with the idea just now. Somebody.
That's your idea. Definitely.
The idea that happened 30 seconds ago.
Well, what I can tell you is there is such thing as an illegal order that can be lawfully. I can lawfully refuse to obey an illegal order.
Right.
And so what's important is that people know what's legal and what's illegal. That's what's and that's the trick.
But there's things that are legal that are morally questionable.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
Like
Now also, I think there is this stipulation of conscientious objector.
Yeah.
Which Hacksaw Ridge, they made a big deal about. Oh gosh, I wish I remember this medic's name, but he refused to carry a gun. He refused to take a life, but he was there at Hacksaw Ridge saving lives. He was a medic. And so there is that ability, there is that option to. I need to look further into the legality and the validity of the whole conscientious objector clause or whatever that is, and that's there. And I can tell you that it's happened, and 9 times out of 10 the objector was not persecuted or fired or demoted or whatever. But there is. I should probably look into more of that. I'll definitely have you back on, and we can definitely delve into that more.
I think and that's where so these are the things that I want. So this is the point where I'm like, okay, now I want to make a film about that, because like what goes through the mind of somebody who is standing there taking that order, like that's what interests me. Like I definitely have issues with the U.S. A lot of issues with the U.S. military, from the hundreds of millions of dollars that's spent trying to get kids to high school students, convincing them that it's their only option, to how the U.S. government constantly lying to us about why we're going to war, to how people in the military are like treated after they're no longer in the military. So I've got all of these things that I care passionately about, but the way that I would want to get into that story and be subtle about it is to just talk about what goes through your mind when you are told to do one thing but you believe something else.
Right. Yeah.
That's how I make films. The end. Yeah.
Explore. Explore and delve into, listen, there's one of the greatest quotes, and there's a whole slew of movies that inspired me to become a filmmaker. But Heat is by far the #1 film. Heat with De Niro and Pacino.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, De Niro came out with a movie called Men of Honor with Cuba Gooding Jr. And it's a military movie, but he had a great line. I think, throughout the whole first half of the movie, he was racist. He was this naval instructor about deep sea divers in the Navy. Cuba Gooding Jr. comes along, first black guy, I think, to become a deep sea naval diving officer, and then rose up in the ranks. But a bunch of stuff happened, and a bunch of stuff happened. They were telling, you know, De Niro to do one thing and he refused. And Cuba Gooding Jr. asked him, like, why did you do this, that, and the other thing? He goes, piss people off. And that stuck to me.
Right.
Who is he trying to piss off? You know, racist people, but he's a racist. So this asshole who's a pencil pusher, and that's what struck me, is like, this guy that's never gotten his hands dirty is telling him to do something. So he's like, fuck this guy.
Right.
I'm gonna let I forget Cuba Gooding's character's name, you know, based on true story, all that, but I'm gonna help this guy rise to the top. I don't like, he might be just as racist as all the other one, but fuck this officer who's just a pencil pusher.
Sure.
Just you're coming along with us. You're going to be a deep sea diver, piss people off. And that was his whole goal, because he was sick and tired of one thing. And so he did something for a black guy that he probably didn't like him because he was black, but he helped him out anyway, because he was sick and tired of this other thing, which eventually changed his mind on race and changed his mind on other things. Maybe, who knows? Movies, you know, always divert from facts anyway. But that always stuck with me. Like, why is this government the way it is? And it shouldn't be. Yeah. So fuck them. I'm going to talk about it. Well, you know, that upsets me. I don't care. There's a problem with this. There's a problem. There might be a problem with the military. There might be a problem with the election system. There's a problem with the gender relations. There's a problem with race relations. There's a problem with the way children are educated. There's a problem with this. Let's talk about it. You're going to piss people off. Hey, fuck them.
Yeah. Good.
Piss them off. Maybe there's going to be change. I mean, Donald Trump, of all people, became president of the United States. Now we got Me Too. Now we got Black Lives Matter was pushed even further. We got, you know, now every other commercial I see has an LGBTQ theme to it. A lot of these holiday commercials now have same-sex couples as the main focus of a holiday commercial or a vacation commercial or something. And now there's all these people pissed off about it. Good.
Yeah.
Has these couples not been around until just now? Like, they've been around. They didn't really have a market. They didn't have a medium. And I always bring up this because this was something that somebody like, oh, all these commercials have gays in it now. Well, why does it bother you? Who the fuck's watching the commercials?
Right.
You hit skip. Or I remember when I was a kid, the commercial come on, you go get a refill, or you go get some food, you go get a snack, you come back when the commercial's over. Who's sitting there watching the freaking commercials?
Yeah, it's like all these things, like all the racism and the homophobia and the sexism and the xenophobia. It's not only is it like so obviously like evil and wrong on so many levels, but they're also just like such a waste of time. It's like why are we? Yeah,
I couldn't agree with you more. And I've discussed this a number of times on the show, and it's like, these people have nothing else going on. Nothing.
Yeah. But I think they're also afraid of their power being taken away.
Like, what fucking power do they even have anyway?
Yeah. Well, if you're a straight white male in America, your life is a lot different.
I can agree with that.
In 2030, your life is going to be a lot different than it was in 1980.
Mm-hmm.
And so all these things are happening, and it's like altering lives for the better, except for like that small vocal minority who still have a lot of the political power and a lot of the wealth. And so their lives are changing, and so they're afraid of.
That's true.
Yeah. So
there is that power, there is that small, what is it, the 1% or the 0.5% that they always talk about?
Yeah. Whoever is paying my bills and or paying me to do whoever is signing my checks right now at some level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but It's like, well, hopefully you save your money, man, because you can't stop. The only thing that doesn't change is change.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't know, like the well, yeah. I mean, there is this small faction that is terrified, but why not cash in on it instead? You know what I mean? Like just let it happen.
Well, that, I mean, that is a thing that happens is like as soon as they realize that they would make a lot more money letting their whatever thing, you know, be inclusive and diverse, then everything will change and everything will be inclusive and diverse once it helps them financially.
But like, you know, I don't want to go off on this whole topic of like, you know, global warming and climate change and poverty and starvation and disease, but you could keep going. You could keep your mindset one way and there will not be a planet Earth for you to even fucking live on to be in power.
Yeah.
With all with riots and disease and it fucking snowed in May in Maryland. And someone's trying to tell me, oh, well, how long? I mean, that's a fluke. I'm like, bro, it snowed for 5 minutes in May in Maryland. There's something wrong with that. That is not normal. And but really it was like a whole day.
Yeah.
But it's trying to tell me like, you know, oh, this and that and the other thing. But at the end of the day, why does it bother you? You're still not going to lose the $1 billion you already have in the bank. You might not make another billion. But if you already have a freaking billion, dude, relax, take it easy. Let somebody else get a little piece of the pie. You're not going to lose. But if you don't have a planet Earth, oh, we got to hurry up and go to Mars then. And you're just going to freaking ruin Mars now. Just relax, man. Let's keep this planet, you know, safe and sound in all aspects, you know. But in 40 years, if we don't even have a planet Earth, then your $1 billion, like no one's even going to respect the dollar.
Right.
You know, it's going to be kill or be killed. And if you're a 80-year-old fat, out of shape, weak, rich man, your riches don't count anymore. You are going to get slaughtered. So let's, in such a way, let's do all this inclusion. Let's make this planet last. I don't know. I certainly don't mean to be going off on like this bizarre futurist progressive you know rant, but
yeah,
it's, I mean, that's like we're not going to be around, and so where does that money go when this 90-year-old, you know, conglomerate, you know, billionaire, trillionaire dies? Right. Now what? It goes to his dog? I don't know, because he be damned if it goes to gay black men, I guess, right?
Right.
So whatever. Anyway, not to go off on, but what's you know, we kind of touched upon it, but what's one last point you'd want to make, or one last bit of advice you want to put out there?
Oh, to who am I advising?
Well, I guess it's funny you mentioned it because most of my audience is, you know, 25 to 40-year-old males based on my last, you know, algorithm, but you know, but to, and anybody really, but I guess generally creatives, you know, artists, filmmakers, actors. I mean,
I think I think people are doing this already. But I would say, like, there's no excuse to not. I mean, and I'm stealing this from Steven Soderbergh, but you know, everybody that has a phone is a filmmaker. So there's literally no excuse to not be doing what you want to be doing. If you want to make content, then there's no reason to not be doing it. Like, and going back to that thing where I think that everybody has an interesting story. Like, if you want to make documentaries, then just make a documentary and practice learning how to tell stories. Learn how to tell stories, telling the story of your friends or your family, or like you know, the glass of water that's, you know, sitting next to me. Just there's stories everywhere. So just tell them and don't make any excuses and just do it. Like use your phone, use your iPad, use your laptop to film, or just, take photos, and everybody has access. Most everybody has access to a way to create content now. And so there's no excuses. Just do it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I've butted heads with a lot of people. Just pull the trigger on the thing. So, someone always talks about writing a book. Just write the book. Just write it. Start writing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make music, man. Hey, just start recording something, man. Just play something.
Because and what I always say is that there's somebody in your position who's doing it. Like if you are like, well, I can't do this because of this reason, like out there is somebody in your exact same position who is like killing it online, who's writing that book, and they might have to alter the way they do it. They might like serialize it in a Tumblr blog, or they might, their documentaries are just on Instagram, whatever, but they're doing it. And so there's no excuses anymore. Yeah.
And even bigger and broader. I mean, if you have it's 2020, if you have a smartphone or an iPad or a tablet or a laptop, you can be a filmmaker. You can be a musician. You can be an author.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a couple apps.
If you have a pen and paper, you can.
Oh yeah.
You write it,
Especially pen and paper, you can be a writer of any kind. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So that's my advice to the 25 to 40 males. Is that what's happening? Yeah. My advice
right now, generally, yeah.
All the men who are 25 to 40. Our long conversation about birthing is going to really hit home with them.
Yeah, check it out, doulas. Well, I mean, I will. I mean, listen. The reason why I love doing what I do is because I love doing what I do. I love watching this random stuff and learning new things. And like my wife would be like, "You're watching this?" I'm like, it struck my curiosity.
Yeah.
A documentary about Black women giving birth. She's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a 40-year-old male, and documentaries like that interest me because I'll give you a better example. I thought there's a Netflix series called We Are the Champions, and I don't know if you've seen it, but it is Rainn Wilson. So it's the most bizarre championship categories. There's this cheese rolling down a hill in England. There's a pepper eating contest champion. But there is fantasy black hair. And Rainn Wilson narrates all these episodes. So to see Rainn Wilson narrating a 30 to 45 minute documentary episode on black fantasy hair. So there's this huge, is it the Barker brothers or Bear brothers or something like that?
Atlanta?
In Atlanta, yep.
Yeah.
The big head, the big black hair show. And then they have a sub contest of fantasy hair. And to make matters better, Rainn Wilson, Dwight from The Office, is narrating it.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. And then of course you had which also reminds me of Chris Rock's documentary, Good Hair. I've seen them both. It's bizarre. What would I know of black hair? But I watched them and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I remember Salt and Pepper. And they had that crazy hairstyle because she burnt half of her fucking hair off from that cream. And then those wheels start turning. That's called creativity. That's called experimentation, thinking outside the box. And which leads me to like other bizarre subjects. And then I might make something right down the center that you would look at and be like, wow, that is something like a 40-year-old white male would make. But there is other tiny little sparks in there because of these bizarre, or not bizarre, it's not bizarre, but it's just outside what the stereotype of a 40-year-old white male would be concerned about. Yeah. And as a filmmaker, as an artist, I'm open to that. And how did we get off on that fucking tangent?
Because your audience
Oh yeah.
Usually care about
Doulas.
what doulas and watching live births, but they will.
Well, listen, I mean, if you watch doulas, I knew what a doula was because I heard about it when I took my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, wait a minute, what's a doula? And then I saw it and I was like, oh, that's right. They mentioned that at when she was pregnant, and we went to some classes. So
Cool.
yeah, man. Well, Emmett, I can't thank you enough for coming on, man. This was
thank you. It was fun.
This was fun. It was, learned a lot and went off some bizarre tangents, but I love it, man. That's
nice.
That's
Good.
the whole goal is exchange of ideas, experimentation, exploration of new and undiscovered ideas and stuff like that. So yeah, maybe in a year and a half, I'll definitely jump on that documentary with you.
Okay.
Explore the whole military thing. But
yeah.
But let me wait until I'm not under the government's control just yet. So, but yeah, man. Emmett Williams, man, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Links to any socials, links, plugs you want to put out there.
My websites are Instagram is Emmett Makes Things, and that tends to be like the place that I put most stuff now. Emmett Williams on Twitter, but Emmett Makes Things on Instagram is where a majority of my content goes these days, or at least like promoting my content. Yeah.
Okay. And
EmmettWilliams.com, missionmanmedia.com.
Yeah. Well, all the links to Emmett's stuff in the description below. And Emmett, again, can't thank you enough for coming on and just chatting it up. It's almost good 2 hours here. So
yeah,
a lot of great content, a lot of great ideas. Definitely continued to be inspired by you and everyone else I have come on. So this makes it worthwhile. It's just having a decent Zoom podcast. And
yeah,
man,
that's awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. To my viewers, I hope I've earned the privilege of your time and viewership. I know my guest has. And until next time, you know what to do.